12th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., with my bright, sunny apartment that's driving me a little crazy because I hate the light. I mean, I don't hate the light, but it's way too bright for my eyes. But what do you do? Time change. I have no choice. America set the clock ahead, and I get a bright apartment. Anyway, welcome, everybody. I'm going to get TikTok rolling. Ukraine war update. All right, go live. I'm going to put a fan on because my apartment is actually warm today, which is crazy. It's actually beautiful today. It's like 73 out right now, which is just insane. But what? Oh, 74 in here. No wonder it's warm. I should be wearing my shorts. Okay, I didn't even realize that. All right, I should have shorts on. No wonder I'm too hot in my apartment. Oh, well. Anyway, hello, TikTokers. How are you? Just commenting on how warm it is today in Washington. I should be wearing shorts, and I'm not. I will remember this for tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to even put my AC on AC, like heat and AC now. I'm switching. There we go. Switching to both modes there. Now at least it won't get any hotter. There we go. Hello, David in San Francisco. Hello, guys. Hey, James, super donor. Yes, James helped us today. James was our super donor that pushed our fundraiser over the top today. Thank you, Mark Starr. We did we finished our fundraiser today with Vlad. Thank you, Mustard, for the battery systems we were buying for the Ukrainian military. We needed $2,500. We were about $300 short, and James chipped in to get us there. So we did it. We raised the money for the 2 battery systems for the Ukrainian military. Thank you all for helping. Soren won the stamps that Vlad was giving away. Vlad had, thank you, John, for the gift. Vlad had first day of issue Ukrainian stamps commemorating the 10-year anniversary of the war, because the Russians started the war in 2014, of course. And in any case, so thank you all. Yeah, so the Ukrainian military is getting their two battery units that they needed to basically power their cell phones and power their laptop computers at the front line, thanks to all of you. So thank you. Thank you, Martin, for the gift. Today is a busy news day. Yeah. There's more than I may even chuck some of the news. We'll see how it goes. There's a good amount of news today. Anyway, thank you for the hat, Marie. Anyway, how are we all doing today? Oh, thank you, Cindy. That's always one of my faves. I like that one because one of the gifts on TikTok, the little like tail on the back is fun. Anyway, guys. Well, welcome. Trying to think. Oh yeah, I do forget that people tell this, but apparently, it can't hurt on TikTok or YouTube to hit the like button. Like on TikTok, you can just tap the screen and send hearts, which is something I didn't know for the longest time. But you can do on YouTube, obviously, you can hit the like button or like the broadcast or whatever. But those kind of things do help. So please do them during the show. In principle, nobody knows, but in principle, it hopefully tells TikTok's little computer in the sky, the AI, that you guys like the show and that they should send more people. So we like that. So please do hit the little like buttons. I'm going to adjust my light again as we're speaking here. Okay, that's a little bit better. Much better. All right, guys. Well, welcome. I am going to jump right in. Thank you, Street Rat. We're going to cover the news from Ukraine. The way we do the show is I go about half hour, 45 minutes doing the latest news from Ukraine. Thank you, Elizabeth. And then second half of the show, we will, thank you, Elizabeth, again. Second half of the show, take your guys' questions. I don't think, I may start with just one sort of little not Ukraine story, because sometimes I'll cover other news, as you guys know, because this is an election year in America, and I think it's hard not to cover elections. Thank you, Joe. But, and thank you, Typhoon, for the rose. But the people ask, thank you, Ellie, about RFK Jr., who's one of the Kennedys, but he's the crazy Kennedy. Thank you, Martin, who's running for president. And he's crazy. He's an anti-vaxxer. He's not just an anti-COVID anti-vaxxer. He's literally like cuckoo kind of anti-vaxxer. He, thank you, Crazy American, he doesn't believe that any vaccines work. He doesn't believe that any vaccines are safe. He literally said last summer that there isn't a single vaccine that has been proven safe, and there isn't a single vaccine that's been proven effective. He's a liar on both accounts. Obviously, there's lots of vaccines that are safe, and there's a ton of vaccines that are effective. Most of us got them when we were children, which is why most of us didn't get polio or measles, among other diseases. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Monica and Joe. Do you want to miss folks here? Thank you guys for all the gifts. And who is it? Tarad and Cindy Lee. Thank you, guys. So in any case, thank you, Ava. So RFK Jr. announced today or whatever, let leak. Thank you, Timothy, that his vice president, I do not have a new haircut. My hair just changes every day. But thank you, Lori. It's just when you've got curly, wavy hair, every day is a new experience. But thank you. So RFK Jr. let loose that he's now considering 2 vice presidential candidates. He considered a lot of others, including Tulsi Gabbard, too long to explain if you don't know who she is. Lunatic right-winger, former Democrat who now has become a Fox News Republican. She's crazy. I mean, she's not crazy like he is. RFK Jr. is literally like, woohoo. Tulsi Gabbard's just nasty. I mean, nasty, nasty far right-winger. He also talked to Rand Paul, who is a U.S. senator who is as far right nut job as you can get. Rand Paul, many people worry that Rand Paul works for Moscow. There is the concern there. There is a legitimate concern as to who exactly he's working for. Little concern about that. So that's the first thing. Ben, if you don't like it, you are free to leave the show. Sorry. But so RFK Jr. So RFK announces that among the 2 vice presidential candidates he's considering, thank you, Lori, is Aaron Rodgers, who's his claim to fame is twofold. One, he's an American football player, which means 0 experience at all on anything. His only experience in politics is being an anti-COVID vaxxer person. That's it. Thank you, Jonathan. The guy's only political experience is actually 2 things. He lied. He didn't want to get the COVID vaccine when they were requiring football players to get the COVID vaccine. He didn't want to get it. So he said at a press conference that he was immunized. And we find out later that what happened was he wasn't immunized at all. He went to a homeopathic doctor, a witch doctor basically, who gave him some super secret witch doctor treatment that made him immune from COVID, he claimed. Thank you, Monica. So he claimed that he was immunized because the witch doctor gave him something, right? That's who RFK Jr. asked to be his vice president, okay? He asked a football player whose only claim to fame is being anti the COVID vaccine and lying about it and going to a quack homeopathic guy who claimed he could cure COVID and make you immune from it, okay? I mean, again, this is why I talk about RFK Jr. The man is out of his mind. He's literally crazy. When I say some people are crazy, I mean that they're just wacko. They drive us nuts kind of thing. RFK Jr. has a screw loose. His organization, I told you guys this, his organization last week puts out a tweet claiming that polio is not caused by polio. It's not caused by the polio virus. It's just caused by toxins. And therefore, the polio vaccine doesn't work. Okay? Polio, which was cured worldwide in the mid-1950s, and then later, as more and more people took the vaccine, because there was a polio vaccine. Thank you, Cornflower. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Carter. Polio, previous to the vaccine, it would typically hit young kids who would get, they would get paralyzed. Thank you, Sean. And they would have to live in an iron lung for the rest of their life. Any of you who are too young to know, an iron lung was a metal tube that you laid down in. Just your head was sticking out of the tube, and the tube would the pressure in the tube would go up and down, and it forced your chest down and up so you'd breathe. You were stuck in a metal tube laying down for your entire freaking life, or you would die. That's what polio did. That's what RFK Jr.'s organization is claiming is no problem. The vaccine doesn't work. You get what? I mean, I bring this up because this is crazy stuff. Oh, Aaron Rodgers is on his short list of 2 people now. Aaron Rodgers, who's the COVID denier. It's insane. It's insane, okay? But I bring it up because this is an election year in America. I will be talking about U.S. politics in addition to Ukraine, and people keep asking about RFK Jr. You need to understand who RFK Jr. is. He's crazy. And I'll say it again, I don't mean it metaphorically. The guy is out of his mind. and pushing the fact that polio isn't a problem because the polio vaccine, polio vaccine doesn't work. You cannot get more dangerous than that. But literally picking a football player and his only credential is he didn't want to take the COVID vaccine and claimed that a quack homeopathic guy could stop you from getting COVID. Anyway, all right. From that happy news, let's move on. It is day 745 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Please do keep the gifts coming, guys. I do this for free and I do it full time. Your guys' gifts literally pay my bills. So please, if you like the show, keep the gifts coming. Biden is going to provide another $300 million to Ukraine. This was sort of interesting news today. I have a glass half full, glass half empty view on this. So reportedly, Biden found another $300 million to give to Ukraine. Thank you, Cornflower. Thank you, user. Thank you, user again, 7168. And Cornflower again. Biden found another $300 million. Reportedly, the Pentagon, basically, the way it works in America, probably many countries, the Congress, the Parliament, is in charge of sort of coming up with the money, and then the president or prime minister or whatever can spend the money. Biden thought he had run out of money, and I was reading the article finally before the show, and what happened was they looked back at some of the previous money they spent and realized they didn't spend it all. They thought, for example, I don't know, maybe they sent some weapons to Ukraine they thought cost $500 million. After sending them, they realized they only sent $300 million worth. Well, that means they've got an extra $200 million left. Well, they found they had $300 million left, so Biden sent another aid package to Ukraine. The aid package includes, among other things, ATACMS missiles, which are the missiles that the U.S. sent several months ago to Ukraine that Ukraine used quite effectively. But we're talking now, I don't even know if it was 6 months, 9 months ago that we sent the ATACMS last time. The problem last time and the problem this time is they're the wrong missiles. Thank you, Ellie. And this is why I get upset at Joe Biden. He sent the bad missiles again, not the good missiles. Ukraine needs ATACMS missiles that can go like, I'm trying to remember if it's 200 or 300 miles, the distance they can go. They need these missiles that can go the longer distance so they can hit Russian supplies, so they can hit Russian barracks where the troops are, so they can hit Russian command and control where the military headquarters are. The ones we've given them can't go that far. They can't do as much damage. What did Biden do? Last time, he gave Ukraine the wrong ones. He gave them the old ones, the ones that don't go as far. This time, what did Biden do? He gave Ukraine the wrong ones. He gave them the old ones again. He gave them the ones that can't go far enough again. Okay? This is why I've said before, and I will say again and again and again, and I am right about this, and someday, some of you don't believe me, you just wait and see. Biden does not want Ukraine to win the war. He's afraid of Vladimir Putin. He wants to make sure Ukraine doesn't lose the war, right? He wants a tie. He wants Ukraine stuck where they are, but he doesn't want Putin to get all of Ukraine, but he really doesn't want Ukraine to get all of Ukraine either. And that's why we're not giving them. But I mean, we are still at the point where we are not giving the Ukrainians the missiles they want and need. And frankly, all the defense experts say they need the longer term missiles. We are still not giving them at this. I mean, seriously, at this point, I swear to God, why give Ukraine anything at this point? No, I mean, because this is the very definition of a quagmire, okay? The very definition of a quagmire. The idea that you give a country just enough weapons to tie with the other guy so the war continues forever, okay? Then what is the freaking point? I don't want to give Ukraine money forever to fight the war. I don't want this to be a forever war. I want to win the war. Then why the hell are we doing it? And probably Gunnerman, the problem is Gunnerman says to bleed Russia out. The problem is Ukraine is going to bleed out before Russia. Ukraine is smaller. Russia's got 3.5 times the population of Ukraine. So they've got, in the end, more Russians can die than Ukrainians. And in other words, and the war could keep going on because the Russians have more men to kill than the Ukrainians do. The Russians have more weapons than the Ukrainians. The Russians have more artillery than the Ukrainians. Thank you, Jeddah. The Russians have more tanks. I mean, everything the Russians have more of. So like, this is the only explanation is Biden is afraid of Vladimir Putin. It's not. We are not bleeding Russia for us. That's not what's going on, Tyler. But I mean, it's just not. I've seen people say that before. Biden isn't that nefarious. I think Biden's a nice man, but I think he's afraid of Vladimir Putin. The simpler explanation isn't that, oh, Biden doesn't want Ukraine to win because he wants this to go on a long time to hurt Russia. That's not what's going on. That's not going on. The simpler explanation is that Biden's afraid of Vladimir Putin. And if Ukraine gets Crimea back, Putin's going to freak out. And Putin effectively scared the hell out of Biden about the nuclear weapons. So Biden's afraid of anything that we do that might trigger nuclear weapons. And if Putin, I guarantee, someday the book is going to come out in 10 years, and I want you all to remember me in this day. The problem is Biden thinks if Ukraine gets Crimea back, that the Russians are going to use nukes. That's it. Otherwise, I mean, I'm open to it. Those who still defend Biden on this, tell me why Biden won't give the weapons then. Biden had more money today. He found $300 million. Why didn't he give Ukraine the longer range ATACMS that they need? Seriously, I mean, come up with a reason that isn't he wants, to bleed the Russians, which I don't think that's the case, and isn't he's afraid of pissing off Vladimir Putin. Here's the problem. I mean, Chris says, who advises Biden on what weapons to give? Obviously, all of his generals do and his advisors. The problem is the buck stops with Biden. The buck stops with him. At some point, and somebody convinced me of this several months ago because I was talking about the advisors and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and everybody else. And the person said to me, Biden's the one in charge. He's not an idiot. I mean, right? Unless you're a Trumper or something and you think Biden's like senile, I don't think Biden's senile. I think Biden knows exactly what's going on. And he's the one responsible. So it's not just a matter of his advisors tell him, oh, don't give those to Ukraine. He agrees. He's the one who ends up agreeing. Anyway, it just pisses me off. Sally. Hello, Sally. I heard today that the Abrams tanks provided by the U.S. didn't have the latest armor because they were afraid of the Russians stealing the technology. Yes. The Abrams we provided, we either removed or made sure they didn't have the reactive armor. It was either the reactive armor or it was the, what am I looking for? I want to say the uranium, right? The depleted uranium armor. I don't know. Callum should be with us today. Callum or any of the rest of you. Do you remember which one it was? But you are correct. We made sure it didn't have the armor because I think we were afraid of the Russians getting their hands on it. But was it the reactive armor or was it the depleted uranium? Or are those the same? I mean, they would serve two different purposes in principle. Depleted uranium would be stronger, and reactive kind of blows up when you hit it, so it pushes the explosion away. Just curious if anybody knows which one it was, but you are correct, though, that yes. Now, I have less of a problem with that potentially, right? Because I could see a valid argument for us wanting to be careful. But yes, Santa Claus. But Santa Claus. But the question is when the armor, there was armor that was removed, and we made sure that we were sending. The newer tanks had the armor that we made sure was removed. I believe it was depleted uranium armor because I also remember. I want to say the British tanks might have had it anyway. I think so. In any case, it was depleted. So Sally says it was depleted uranium. That's what I read it as. Yep. Yeah, it wasn't reactive. It was depleted uranium, which was the question. So yes, you are correct, Sally. But as I said, I am willing to accept an argument that we want to be careful just how modern of weapons we give Ukraine, lest they fall into the hands of the Russians, right? I'm sure there are some weapons we don't want the Russians to get their hands on. So that I'm sympathetic to that, put it that way. So you are correct, but I don't know whether it's necessarily an indication of a problem. You know what I mean? All right. Yeah, I think the British tanks may have had it on them. I may be wrong here, but I think so. I think so. In any case, let's go on, guys. The Russian Legion. So there were reports today that those Russian soldiers who are fighting for Ukraine, it was the Russian Legion and the Siberian Battalion. I haven't heard of the Siberian Battalion before. That they invaded Russia again, crossing into Belgorod, which is right near Kharkiv, and Kursk. and were basically making another cross-border. These are basically Russians who are working with the Ukrainians who don't like Putin, rebels, whatever you want to call them, Russian Wolverines, who attacked across the border into Russia again today. Now, the Russians claim, I'm not even going to tell you the details of their claim because the Russians lie. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Martin. The Russians claim that they, destroyed all sorts of NATO armor today and hundreds of these Russian infiltrators and blah, blah, blah. Everything they say is a lie. So I like I said, I won't even, adjusting my light again, I won't even give you the details of what the Russians claim because they lie about everything. But we don't know how successful this was. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Cheryl, for the TikTok gifts. We don't know how successful it was. We don't know how disastrous it was. As I said, the fact that the Russians and the Americans don't lie terribly. No, we don't. Not like the Russians do. I always sort of like to correct people when they bring this up. Russia lies as a matter of policy. Russian foreign policy is to lie. There is literally nothing the Russian government says. Maybe Putin's name is real when they speak, but there is little more other than like their names they give with the Russian government that isn't a lie. The American government, that is not the case. The Ukrainian government, that's not the case. European governments. It is kind of like comparing Donald Trump to other politicians or comparing George Santos to other politicians for the American audience. There are certain people who are pathological liars, and then there's people who lie. Russia is a pathological liar, and we all recognize that a pathological liar is a lot different than, oh, everybody lies. Yeah. You lie when you're protecting your mother from something and you don't want to tell her what you did last night. That's not the same thing as what Russia does. Thank you, Nicholas. Sky News. Ukraine appeared to have a good attack on a Russian oil refinery today. Thank you, Cindy, for the gift. Thank you, Nicholas. According to Sky News, flames erupted and black smoke billowed in the sky after a drone hit an oil processing facility in Russia's Nizhny Novgorod region this morning. This was interesting. The region lies deep inside Russia, some 775 kilometers or 480 miles. Thank you, Fred, for the hat on TikTok. 480 miles from the Ukrainian border. I'm always intrigued by that because once you get 500 miles into Russia or 800 kilometers, I start to wonder whether you attacked from inside Ukraine or whether, oh, can I do this myself? I can. Yay! That was for me, mods. I got her myself. I had to. I just had to. Any case, and remember, Ashley, you can go light on the blocks and do mods. I mean, do mutes too if you want. You know what I mean? Just to make it easier, because otherwise I have to deal with the blocks when I'm blocking people on my videos later. Oh, yes. So Ukrainian drones hit an oil processing facility in Russia this morning, deep inside Russia, which is very interesting. Very interesting. Reuters reports that industry sources told Reuters on the condition of anonymity that the main crude distillation unit at North Sea, which is the refinery, was damaged in the attack, which means that at least half of the refinery's oil production is halted. So that was very good. Again, long-term, who knows? But Ukraine clearly, there was actually reports overnight that Ukraine went after I don't even know if it was a dozen Russian cities or what. They're clearly trying to beef up the drone attacks they're doing on Russia. Hopefully it's effective. Hopefully they've got enough drones. The Russians attacked Zelensky's hometown overnight with, again, more drone attacks. They drones, and I don't know if they did missiles as well, but they hit 2 apartment buildings, 2 high-rises. They injured from 30 to 38 people. Among the wounded are 10 children. The dead, actually, they killed at least 3 people. The buildings were seriously on fire. Basically, they're attacking apartment buildings again because, again, this is what they do. And they occasionally like to go after Zelensky's hometown because it's Russia. This is what they do. They just decide if we can kill civilians in Zelensky's hometown, that'll teach him. That'll teach him. Vatican. So the Vatican tried to clean up a little bit, which was interesting. Over the weekend, the Pope kind of screwed up and said some kind of a comment about Ukraine should embrace the white flag and negotiate with Russia. And of course, the white flag is not a term used for negotiations. The white flag is a term used for surrender, right? You surrender with the white flag. The white flag doesn't mean let's negotiate. It doesn't. So the Pope got a lot of pushback on this. The Vatican people tried to back off today, but I think what they said today wasn't really much better. Let me tell you what they said, and then I'll tell you why this wasn't much better. So today, a Vatican spokesperson said, the first condition for peace in Ukraine is for Russia to cease its hostilities, the Vatican Secretary of State said. Here's the problem. That's not really right. Kimberly, thank you for the gift. I don't know if you meant that to be a question. If it was, feel free just to throw a question on the screen, but thank you either way on YouTube. The problem is we don't just want Russia to stop fighting. If Russia stops fighting, they're going to hold all the land they still hold. They're going to hold 17% of Ukraine. They've already annexed it. They've already claimed that it's Russia, right? So that's not really the problem. I mean, that's part of the problem, but it's not really the only problem here. Let me see if I can, there we go. I'm adjusting the brightness a little bit. There we go. On YouTube, is that better? Right? So like, this is the problem I've said, like, if you think of what's going on with Russia, it is not a border dispute. It's not a situation where, well, both sides are to blame, right? That's not what's going on here. This isn't years of history where both sides have caused lots of problems. This is Russia invading Ukraine because Russia has become the Soviet Union again, and Russia thinks that all of its neighbors belong to it. And Russia wants to invade all of its neighbors and turn their territory into Russian territory and kill everybody else who lives there. It is literally akin to the robber who's a murderer who comes into your home and pretty much wants to kill you and your family and then steal your children and take over your house, right? So once the robber has half your house, saying, well, let's just stop fighting, right? It's not, this is the problem. So for the Vatican to say Russia needs to stop fighting, no, Russia needs to stop fighting and withdraw its troops. Russia does not need to just stop fighting. Thank you, Love Mai. And thank you, Jan Thomas. So this is still a problem with what the Vatican is saying, unfortunately. They still don't quite get what's going on here. Thank you, Alexander, for the finger. It's funny. In English, when you say the finger, it means when you do this with the middle finger. Thank you for the finger. That sounded kind of funny. A little bit more. This was bad. A longtime aide of Alexei Navalny, who's the Russian opposition leader who Putin just had murdered a few weeks ago. A longtime aide of Navalny was assaulted with a hammer in Lithuania. He was in Vilnius. Leonid Volkov was attacked in Vilnius. Someone broke a car window and sprayed tear gas in his eyes, after which they started hitting him with a hammer. I will tell you right now, and it's a guarantee, this was a hit ordered by Vladimir Putin. The Russians did this. We know the Russians did this. You also know it because the extent of what it was. They didn't just break a car window when you were there in the car, which is weird. They didn't just spray you with tear gas in your eyes in a car after breaking the car window, which is really weird. They then took a hammer and started beating you on the head, right? After spraying you with tear gas, after breaking your car window. That is Russian secret police. That is not some criminal decided like, hey, I think I'll break into a random car with a person there, break the window, spray tear gas, and then attack them with a hammer. My proof? Oh, boy. I think we're going to mute you anyway, to be honest, because I've been doing this for 35 years. I always tell folks, for the mods, I tell them to try to be a little more cautious about muting people because, frankly, I've been doing this for 35 years. 35? 40? 30, 20, 35. I don't remember. How many years has it been? 25, 30 years. No, 30 years. I've been doing this for 30 years, actually. Next year will be 30 years. Managing online communities. And you get very good at sniffing out who the bad guys are. And in any case, put that aside. That guy was a troll. How do you know Putin was the one to kill Navalny? Well, hey, maybe the fact that he tried to kill him 4 years ago and failed had something to do with it. You think? Right. We know for a fact that Vladimir Putin tried to kill Alexei Navalny 4 years ago. He poisoned him with Novichok, which is a Soviet-era nerve agent. He was on a plane. Navalny ended up going to Germany, I think Berlin, to be treated, and that's where they were able to prove that it was Novichok that was used, which is the Russian, one of the Russian drugs of choice. It's a Russian nerve agent to start with, but it's also one of the weapons of choice Putin likes to use to kill his political opponents. Putin has also killed dozens of other political opponents, from journalists to industrialists he didn't like, to other actually political opponents as well. Putin has killed other political opponents too. So that's how we know, basically. When it has been proven that you tried to murder the guy 4 years ago, and then you threw the guy in jail for life, because he simply was running for president against you, and then in jail you put him in solitary, and you treated him so badly that he lost tens of pounds. I mean, this guy was emaciated by the time he died. It is a guarantee that you killed him, and it wasn't. Basically, the burden would be on you at that point to try to prove that this guy wasn't the one who did it, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Aaron. I wish I was 35 to 40. I am not 35 to 40, but thank you for that. Yes, I started working out of law school and graduate school in 1989 actually was when I graduated law school and graduate school. So there. All right, a little bit more. Denmark announced a new military aid package for Ukraine worth $336 million, including artillery systems and more. European Union countries are close to a deal to add 5 billion euros or $5.5 billion to a fund used to provide military assistance to Ukraine. A senior European intelligence official told CNN that Russia is on track to produce nearly 3 times more artillery munitions than the US and Europe are for Ukraine. That's obviously very bad. This is kind of a crazy story. Listen to this from Sky News. An alleged Russian agent serving in Ukraine's army. So he was a member of Ukraine's army who the Russians got to try to do an assassination plot against other military officials. He was arrested. But listen to this. The Ukrainian intelligence thwarted the attack against army commanders in the southern Zaporizhia region and detained a man who turned out to be an active serviceman of Ukraine. To commit the crime, he planned to add a poisonous substance to the water of the bath and laundry complex, which was used by the command staff. So basically, they were going to try to poison these people while they were taking a bath or taking a shower. The investigation found, listen to this. So this is a Ukrainian military guy who was trying to poison the water that his commanders were using. Listen to this. The investigation found that the suspect was recruited after Russian forces kidnapped and imprisoned his parents, who live in an occupied area of eastern Ukraine. The victims were the parents were subjected to brutal torture, demanding that they persuade their son to work for Russia. So thank you, Lotus. They took the kids' parents hostage in eastern Ukraine, where they're occupying. His parents are Ukrainian, tortured them and beat them until they called him on the phone and told him what they were doing to them, what the Russians were doing to his parents, and that he would have to poison his commanders or they were going to kill his parents. Again, I tell you, this is what Russia is. Russia is a dictatorship. Putin is a murderer. These people are not our friends. They're not our allies. Ronald Reagan called them the evil empire, and he was correct. They are still the evil empire. But I mean, this kind of brutality, again, I tell these stories so that people understand, because unfortunately the MAGA people don't get it, because Donald Trump has told them these people are the nicest people on the planet. They're the nicest country on the planet. They are the evil empire. Ronald Reagan was right. A little bit more. Lithuania. Oh, this was kind of funky. So Lithuania, I remember mentioning this a few months ago. Lithuania. I see. Timberly did have a. Okay, Timberly, I'm calling you. Kimberly did have a question. Hang on, Kimberly. I see your question now. Kimberly said, I don't understand people who moan about money being sent aren't kicking off more than the right weapons aren't being sent. Kimberly, I'm not understanding that. If the correct weapons were sent, the world would be over and billions of pounds would have been saved. Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, I think what she's saying. Thank you, Christian. I think what she's saying is people who are complaining about the money we're sending Ukraine should be complaining about the aid we're giving being the wrong aid. I agree with you. The problem is the people who are criticizing Ukraine, thank you, Critter, don't want Ukraine to win. They don't care. They're Trump supporters. Donald Trump is beholden to Vladimir Putin. Donald Trump wants Vladimir Putin to win the war because Vladimir Putin wants Vladimir Putin to win the war. And Trump's voters want whatever Trump wants because it's a cult. And unfortunately, they're uneducated, gullible people because Trump's a con man. I mean, I hate to say it more directly than this, but, you know, at some point, we've got to tell the truth, guys, and stop coddling these people. So they don't want Ukraine to win. They want Ukraine to lose. So they're not actually going to criticize the actual reason and say, well, you're giving the wrong weapons to Ukraine. The easiest thing for them to do as a talking point is, why are we spending this money on such a corrupt country, right? Ukraine bad, Russia's great. Talking about the amount of money is easier. Getting into the details of the wrong weapon systems, it's more complicated. It's harder to explain to people because then you've got to explain, well, you see, they got an ATACMS, but they got the wrong ATACMS. They got the short-range ATACMS and not the long-range ATACMS, right? That's confusing. It's easy to say, why are we giving money to Zelensky, who's so corrupt? He's got 5 houses. He does not have 5 houses, and he's not so corrupt, just to put that out there. Thank you, Tom. But that's a much easier argument. And these guys, in the end, don't want the Ukraine war fixed. They don't want to point out the real problem and have it fixed. They just want to kill Ukraine and help Putin, who's their new boss, really. I mean, again, it really kind of sickens me, but that's what's going on. So I think that's why. I think what you are arguing would be a very honest and genuine argument. Yes, would be to talk about the actual weapon systems and how we're not giving the right weapons. But that would be an argument that somebody who actually wanted Ukraine to win and Russia to lose would be making. And that's not who these guys are. Thank you, Warren, for the roses. What was I going to say? Oh, so, well, I'll skip the Lithuania story, actually. Actually, I'll give you one last final story. Thank you, Black Opal, for those, for the money gun. Ukraine plans to mass produce mobile robots capable of mining, demining, operating attack drones, evacuating wounded soldiers, and transporting ammunition. According to the digital transformation minister, the primary purpose of the vehicles is to keep human involvement on the battlefield to a minimum, thereby reducing the number of soldiers being killed or injured. Very interesting. So just wanted to throw that out there. I mean, Ukraine is still being very innovative, which is good. Hey, Tattoo from Finland. Nice to see you. Welcome to NATO. All right, guys. That is it for the news today. Now we'll do question and answer. Keep in mind, today is Tuesday. Thank you, Running, for the gift. Tomorrow, our auctions end on Discord. You can go, discord.aravosis.com should work, but you guys can actually, the easier way for you folks, look at aravosis.com at the bottom of my screen, click it, and the Discord link will be in the links that pop up. For you guys, go to my profile on TikTok, click the link that's in my TikTok profile, the one with the red triangles pointing at it. Click that link, and if you scroll down a bit, you'll see Discord. Click Discord. It'll take you to our Discord community. It's a chat community, and there you will see our auctions. Our auctions, we auction off cool stuff from Ukraine, and 50% of the money goes to help Ukraine. So we use it for helping Ukrainian military, helping Ukrainian nonprofits, charities, helping the Ukrainian people, lots of different things. The other half of the money goes to support me because I do this full time. And the way I'm able to pay my bills is the gifts you guys give me on TikTok and YouTube, which is why I'm always mentioning it. And please do consider maybe subscribing, becoming a monthly subscriber, because that's actually a much it's a nicer, longer term way of sort of keeping the money straight. But again, the gifts help a lot. Thank you, Christian. Case in point. But I will show you really quick. I've got a number of auction items. All of them finish tomorrow. But I'll tell you the Lithuania story in a second. Okay, this one I like a lot. This is a Petrokivka cat. It is a Christmas ornament, but honestly, you can use it any time of year. But it's a beautifully painted, little bright for you guys, because of the light there. Oops. But it's a beautifully painted ornament, traditional Ukrainian Petrokivka style. My favorite I will show you, which I'm showing you guys, is the Ukrainian military camouflage net. That's our big cool auction item we've got this week. We have been raising money for camouflage nets. This would be a summer net by the green. We've been raising money for Ukrainian military camouflage nets and have been helping working with a charity that makes the nets at the specific request of the military. The military gives the specifications, and we had them make us a few nets for ourselves. These are the same nets for the Ukrainian military, but they basically made smaller ones, which is very cool. So excellent. Feel free to check them out. They're very cool. It's a very unique gift, obviously, a Ukrainian military camouflage net. This one is about maybe two and what was I going to say? It's 8 feet by 2 feet. So that's 2/3 of a meter by almost 3 meters. The regular nets are huge in comparison. I mean, ridiculously larger than that. So anyway, check it out. But as we said, we've got a lot of really cool, things. So check out them. But tomorrow the auctions end, so you miss your chance. You miss your chance. All right, so let's do Q&A and everything else, guys. Paul, how do you evacuate an injured person autonomously? I know, but I don't think I can say, because Vlad showed me some stuff. I don't think I can say. Okay, I will tell you something Vlad didn't show me, which might be one way. And I've not seen, thank you, Soren, for the gift, by the way. I have not seen anything like this. I don't know if Ukraine has this, but one way you could evacuate an injured person autonomously would be, what if you had a drone that was think of like the rover we have on Mars, right? Like a drone on wheels, but it's big enough that a person could lay on it. And that drone was able to go into, enemy territory. It could get shot at. It's an emergency stretcher, exactly what the Breeze just said. And as long as you're able to physically climb onto it and lay down, it could then be driven out of the area. Now, you're still in danger of getting shot at. You're still in danger of artillery hitting you. But guess who isn't in danger? The person driving the drone on the ground, right? Because normally you'd have an ambulance coming in. It's a remote controlled vehicle, a remote controlled ambulance in essence. But it could just be a stretcher on wheels. And the people driving it don't have to risk their lives picking you up. And if you're in good enough shape to get on it, you can get on it. So I don't know if they have such a thing, but that would be one example. Tom, we did reach our goal. Our goal was $2,500 for the 2 batteries for the Ukrainian military. And we reached it this morning. James was very generous, Althouse, and helped us, pitched in a little over $300, and we hit our match. So we've got the money for the batteries. Vlad said it's going to take about a week to get them because they've got to order them and then get them to the military. He's then going to do what he can to get us video, of course, so you guys can actually see the batteries, from the troops thanking us, just as a little bit more. Well, first of all, I think it's nice. Thank you, Hedge. Thank you, Running, for the gifts. But it's also nice just to do it. I don't know, what was Yulia raising money for, Brian? I didn't see. Brian said, did Yulia reach her goal? Was she raising money for drones, or what was she doing? I didn't see. I did see this. Adventures is asking about, did you say anything about the Russian military plane that went down today? No, because we don't know anything about it. It was a Russian plane, a Russian military plane. It said it had like 15 crew and 8 passengers, something like that. And it took off, engine caught fire, and crashed. Thank you, Mustard. What we don't know is, it was in Russian territory. I did not see anything at the time when I read the story that suggested, hitting the lights again here slowly, that suggested that Ukraine had a role. It could have been a malfunction. Because it wasn't clear to me if Ukraine had a role in bringing down the plane, I didn't report on it because I just, you know what I mean? I'm trying to, anyway, I didn't report on it because I didn't want to feel, I'm still adjusting the lights here a little. I didn't want to feel like I was almost promoting a little bit of a conspiracy suggesting Ukraine had a hand. We really don't, we don't even have a sense, we don't even have a hint of Ukraine having a hand in it. It's great news that a military transport went down. Thank you, Blue Ariel, for the TikTok gift for the llama, I think. But we don't know if it was if Ukraine had a hand. So there we go. Yulia's collecting for drones. Okay. Needs about 2,000. How much is she trying to collect total? Just curious. Anyway. What else we got, guys? Beep, 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 beep. I doubt Russia's having a coup. It'd be nice. Well, I shouldn't say that. It might be nice if Russia had a coup. It might not be nice, because one of the things you have to worry about when there's a coup meaning, someone overthrows your government, is you want to worry about who's coming next. That's always a danger. And it's something, just that. Because like in Russia especially, Putin gets killed. Putin gets overthrown. Do we really know that the next guy is going to be better than Putin? No. He could be worse than Putin. He could easily be worse than Putin, right? So there's that you want to be careful. A Lithuania story. Okay, yeah. So Lithuania several months ago had basically, I think the other Baltic states did too. They basically, let me pull this up here. Where is this? The European Union had said something about Russian vehicles and how they weren't going to allow vehicles with Russian registrations into the European Union. So the Baltic states said that, yes, the same thing for them. And Lithuania said they were no longer going to allow vehicles in Lithuania that were registered in Russia. That if you were going to keep a vehicle, which kind of makes sense though, right? If you're going to keep your vehicle in Lithuania, you had to register your vehicle in Lithuania. Washington, D.C. does that, by the way. Years ago, they clamped down on the fact that people from the surrounding states, because we're such a small city, would work in Washington and never register their car here. So Lithuania kind of did something similar, right? So they, adjusting my light again, there we go. So the Lithuanians said, you have to have your car registered in Lithuania or you're in trouble. Well, let me read you this. This was from the Kyiv Independent. Lithuania has seized the first Russian-registered car since a change in rules requiring Russian vehicles to be re-registered in Lithuania. Lithuanian Customs announced earlier in March that all persons with Russian-registered vehicles in Lithuania have until March 11th, which was yesterday, to re-register the cars in Lithuania or leave the country and the EU altogether. The car, a €41,000 or $45,000 Audi Q7, was being driven by a Moldovan, listen to this too, was being driven by a Moldovan citizen from Lithuania to Belarus. So the Moldovan citizen was driving from Lithuania to Belarus in a car registered in Russia. Interesting. When checking the documents submitted by the driver, it was found that the owner of the car is a completely different person, a Russian citizen. Right? So very weird. Honestly, this sounds like a spy to me, which may also be why the Lithuanians decided to teach them a lesson. According to Lithuanian media outlet Delphi, the vehicle will likely be confiscated and may be transferred to Ukraine. So it looks like the Lithuanians may take the vehicle and give it to the Ukrainians. Now, my suspicion is, like I said, thank you, Martin, this is about more than the person not re-registering their car. If the Lithuanians are taking the car and giving it to the Ukrainians, which they might do, it says to me that this Russian, they think is a Russian spy, because it certainly sounds like a spy with all the background there. Anyway, it made me laugh. I was kind of like Lithuanians with chutzpah, which we like very much. So it was a very good thing. All right, there we go. I'm going to adjust my lighting again. There we go. Let me try this actually. Hang on YouTubers, I'm trying to adjust my lighting again. There we go. Okay, maybe that's good enough for now. Okay. Because the sun is setting here, so the light is changing in the apartment, and it's making it, although for you guys too, I don't know on TikTok. TikTok, it's okay. On YouTube, the lighting's kind of getting more difficult. Anyway, Delphi. Oh, that's funny. Well, Delphi makes sense. It's how we would say it in Greek, Delphi, or Adelphi, depending what you're trying to say. Thank you, Lucas. Delphi. If the World War started, where would it be fought? Would Russia just drop bombs on Russia? I mean, I think the concern with the World War is twofold. One, Putin decides to start using nukes in Ukraine. Two, Putin starts doing so well in Ukraine. Thank you, Black Opal, for the TikTok gift. Keep them coming, guys. I appreciate it. Remember, the gifts are how I pay my bills to do the show, so please keep them coming. So second problem, what were we saying? Sorry, with the World War. So one, Russia uses nukes and we get involved in the war. Two, Russia starts doing so well in Ukraine. Thank you, Cuevas. Thank you, Most Plant. Russia starts doing so well in Ukraine that they start threatening to take Kyiv, the capital. They start threatening to take, and I say threatening meaning there is a threat that they could take Odessa. And you then get France, Poland, Estonia, the Baltic states to put troops in Ukraine to try to stop the Russians, right? And all of a sudden, that runs the risk of a war breaking out between those countries. And if it breaks out between those countries, then we're at war. Other than Donald Trump being president, because Trump literally invited Putin to invade Europe and attack our NATO allies, any other normal human being, a normal Republican, but it's not, at this point, it's only Trump who's running. Nikki Haley wouldn't do this, but Trump is not normal. Trump works for Vladimir Putin. Joe Biden would be fine. Joe Biden would be a little afraid, too, of Putin, to be honest. It's different. Trump isn't afraid of Putin. Trump is owned by Putin. Biden would be afraid of Putin, which is its own unique problem, which drives me crazy, but whatever. Thank you, Thibault, for the heart. So there's a couple different ways that a war could break out. The third way is that Putin could invade Poland. He could invade Estonia, one of the Baltic states. He could invade Transnistria and move and start taking some of Moldova too. And maybe the Romanians say enough is enough and the Romanians get involved. There's lots of possibilities of ways that this could get out of control. It's very scary. Dom asks if I have a backup plan if TikTok goes dark. It's not this week, is it? It's not this week. The Senate hasn't passed. The House had passed. Let me pull this up. The House had passed legislation going after TikTok, the U.S. House of Representatives. But it would have to, let me pull this up. It would have to pass the U.S. Senate. Let me pull this up. All right, let me see here. All right, Washington Post. Let's see. TikTok is once again in Congress's crosshairs. The Republican-controlled House will soon vote on a bill requiring TikTok. Wait a minute. This is today, yeah. The Republican-controlled House will soon vote on a bill requiring TikTok. Thank you, guys. Requiring TikTok either be divested from ByteDance, its Beijing-based owner, or face a nationwide ban. The House Committee on Energy and Commerce unanimously passed the measure last Thursday. That's problematic because that means all the Democrats were on board. That's problematic. And House Majority Leader Steve Scalise has said he will bring it to a vote as early as Wednesday. It's the latest front in a year-long battle. Trump did try to block TikTok through executive order in 2020, but remember that Trump is now bought off. Trump met with a billionaire who's got an investment in TikTok's parent company, and Trump magically changed his mind, although I will say Democrats do this too, but he magically changed his mind after meeting the billionaire. So now the fact that Trump is no longer on board with a ban makes me wonder what's going to happen with Republicans. Let me see. The congressional Republicans have led some of the most aggressive proposals against TikTok, although some of the efforts have won support of Democrats. The bill's primary backers, Representative Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin and Raja Krishnamurti of Illinois, say the app poses a grave threat to U.S. national security. Let me see. I want to know. Opponents of the measure, including Senate Democrats and some civil liberty groups, say a ban would impinge on the freedom of expression of TikTok users. Senate Democrats have floated alternative proposals that would give federal authorities more power to counter foreign-controlled apps more broadly without targeting TikTok specifically. Those efforts include a bipartisan bill led by Senate Intelligence Committee Chair Mark Warner and a not yet unveiled proposal from Maria Cantwell, another senator. Both measures have previously received support from the Biden administration. Let me see here. So it's not enough for the House to pass something. It doesn't really matter if the House passes something. The bill appears poised to pass the House. but it faces a tougher path in the Democratic Senate. Top Democrats, including Warner and Cantwell, have been pushing for their alternatives. The top two presidential contenders, for their part, have also complicated the political dynamics, while Biden has thrown his support behind the... Wow. While Biden has thrown his support behind the House Republicans' measure. Okay, I did not know that. Trump on Monday seemingly undercut his fellow Republicans by reversing his position and coming out against a potential TikTok ban. Now, the thing with Trump is, so two things are going on with Trump. One, he met a billionaire who's a big investor in TikTok's parent company, and the guy obviously offered Trump money for, to pay, basically to do ads and stuff like that. And Trump said, okay, or offer Trump a hotel, which often works with Trump as well, and that was enough for Trump to go, okay. The other thing is somebody may have talked to Trump and said, thank you, Liv, and said, Biden's got a problem with young people. A lot of young people think he's too old. They're pissed about Gaza, whatever. Maybe take the opposite position on TikTok of Biden. Maybe be the defender of TikTok and social media and get all the young people on your side. It's possible that's happening too. But TikTok isn't going anywhere unless the Senate passes something as well. The final point is then the U.S. courts get involved, and it's not clear to me that they would win. What I mean is, TikTok, I think TikTok might win because it's a freedom of speech issue. That you can't just legislate businesses and say, well, we're putting your business out of business because, your parent company is from China. I don't know that you can do that. I don't think you can do that. Oh, I love this question. So Ermdog, who's a troll, I think is a troll. We'll give Ermdog one more question before we see if they're a troll. Says, are you better off now than 4 years ago? No, because 4 years ago, I couldn't buy toilet paper. 4 years ago, I couldn't see my mother for a year and a half, who's 90. She was 91 at that point, 90. I couldn't see her and visit her. She could have died for a year and a half because Donald Trump ignored COVID. And millions of Americans died of COVID who didn't need to die because Trump told people COVID didn't matter, because Trump told people COVID wasn't a problem. We couldn't even buy toilet paper 4 years ago. I couldn't buy bleach 4 years ago. We couldn't get anything 4 years ago. So no, I was not better off 4 years ago than I am today. And by the way, 4 years ago, the economy was on the verge of collapse. So yeah, am I better off now than I am 4 years ago? You better believe I'm better off now. The economy is roaring. Frankly, the economy is doing so well that inflation's been a problem, because that's what happens when the economy does too well. Thank you, Cuevas. Inflation does too well, and that's a problem. But we were literally running out of toilet paper under Donald Trump. He couldn't even keep toilet paper in the stores. And we couldn't even see our family because Donald Trump, remember Donald Trump? Let's inject some bleach in our veins to cure COVID. That Donald Trump ignored COVID. He said it was a lie. He said it wasn't a problem. And he ignored the entire epidemic and killed millions of people. So yeah, I think we weren't better off 4 years ago than we are today. Thanks for asking, troll. Yeah, ivermectin. Oh my God. Yeah. And now, don't even. Thank you, Cuevas. Yeah. Better off 4 years. I love the trolls though, because they just, I'm a lawyer and we always say in the law, don't ask a question if you don't know the answer, right? You better know the answer before you ask a question. But people, I love that. Yeah. Oh, the bodies. Oh my God. Charlie's right. I've almost forgot. We were storing dead bodies in freezer trucks. There were so many Americans dying that hospitals had to have trucks outside with ice in them and freezers to store all the dead Americans who were piling up. Okay? 2020, we were afraid to leave our homes because Trump let it turn into such a disaster. So don't even. No, this stuff, thank you, Jen. This stuff drives me crazy. Thank you, Tarad. Because, if people are going to blame Joe Biden for inflation, and presidents have zero control over inflation, but what the hell, right? Biden's president, we blame him. Thank you, Liv. Then let's blame Donald Trump for COVID. Thank you, Incredibly Tired. Because COVID hit during Donald. You know what COVID didn't hit? COVID didn't hit while Joe Biden was president. COVID didn't hit while Barack Obama was president. We could all play this game, right? But if you're going to blame Biden for inflation, let's blame Trump for millions of Americans dying because of COVID. No, drives me absolutely. And again, the dead bodies piling up. It was embarrassing. Let's find that little clip right now too. No, it just, I mean, the man is a danger. The man is a danger to the freaking country, and his supporters like to lie to us. Thank you, Flickr. Hang on a second. Hump. There was a wonderful woman, comedian, who used to do Trump. She would take Trump's actual audio. Do you remember her? And she'd wear like a wig or whatever. And I don't think she used a wig. And she would mimic the Trump audio. What do you call it? Lip sync. She'd lip sync the Trump audio on these things. Was the absolute, I mean, most amazing thing. Here we go.
A question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting. So, supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. Mm-hmm. So we'll see, but the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, he wanted people to like inject light in their bodies too. But of course, we were going to use medical doctors, not just doctors. We were going to use medical doctors to do this. You know, it's like, oh my God. Oh, honey, I'm going to guess there isn't a chance in hell that you are. You're not even close to, you're really not. You're not. You're not. You're a white guy. You're a white guy from some Trump state. Yeah. So there we go. Don't test me on Trump. That's all I got to say. Medical doctors. We're going to ask a medical doctor. Maybe there's a way you could like inject a disinfectant. I guess we're going to look into that. Remember the look on her face too? She was sitting there and she was just like, didn't know what to freaking do. Mm-hmm. What's your problem with Trump? Did you watch the video? My second problem with Trump is I'm not a big fan of terrorists and anti-American, basically fifth columnists who work for America's enemies. He tried to violently overthrow the government. He works for Vladimir Putin, which Ronald Reagan is correct. Russia is an evil empire. Works for Putin. He clearly is either owned by Vladimir Putin because Putin either bought him off or Putin has compromised him. But Trump literally is working for America's enemies. He hates the troops. He said that American troops are suckers and losers. So, yeah, I have a problem with Donald Trump. That's my problem with Trump. I don't like traitors. I don't like people who like America's enemies more than they like America's friends. I don't like people who don't believe in America's freedoms. I don't like people who think it's okay to attack cops at the U.S. Capitol. I don't like people who attack American troops and call our soldiers, especially our prisoners of war, suckers and losers, and refuse to visit our war dead because his hair might get wet. I have a problem with that, yeah. So that's my problem with Donald Trump. Oh, and finally, I'm not a big fan of people who try to violently overthrow our government using 1,200 terrorists. So, yeah, I have a problem with that too. As I always tell people, why is it you don't have a problem with Donald Trump is my question. Assuming you're American and assuming you're a good American, why is it you don't have a problem with Trump at this point? You know, Nikki Haley, she's fine. She's ridiculously conservative for my taste. I'd never vote for her, but she's fine. But you guys decide you want to embrace somebody who's a traitor to the country. Thank you, Laura, who's an absolute traitor to the country. So, and a terrorist. I'm sorry, but he is a domestic terrorist. He tried to violently overthrow the government. He's an insurrectionist. And you guys are okay with that? If a Democrat did that, you'd have had them hanged. You'd have absolutely had them hanged. Mm-hmm. Yeah, T-Bone, so before you leave us, I love this. T-Bone says January 6th was orchestrated by Democrats. So let's work with that. So January 6th, which was the insurrection, thank you, Dawn, thank you, Cerveza, was actually orchestrated by Democrats. Then why is it that Donald Trump just said today that he's going to pardon all the people who were arrested for January 6th and that they're actually hostages? So you mean Donald Trump says that the Democrats who orchestrated January 6th are actually hostages being oppressed by Joe Biden, and he's going to pardon all the Democrats who orchestrated January 6th? I'm so confused. Right? Which one is it? Did Democrats orchestrate January 6th, or are the January 6th insurrectionists hostages who are innocent and Donald Trump is going to free them? And if they are, why would Donald Trump free Democrats who organized January 6th? Wouldn't he, I mean, if it's BLM and Antifa, wouldn't Donald Trump want to throw them in jail for attacking the Congress? I'm confused. Or are you guys pro-Antifa now and pro-BLM? So confusing. Never ask a question you don't know the answer to. So, and thank you. That was a lovely gift. I did notice that it was a particularly nice gift too. Thank you. Anyway, no, it's just ridiculous. It's hard to say so, but that's an interesting question. I think some people did analysis. Sobo was asking, do you think part of the reason Trump lost was because a lot of basically Republicans died? I think what you're asking is that I don't think killing your voters is a very good election strategy. Trump did kill a lot of his voters. The problem is not the problem, but the problem mathematically is you have to kill enough to make a difference. And I don't know whether he did, but we know that COVID was more serious in Republican states and Republican counties and Republican cities and Republican areas because the Republicans are sadly under Trump in a cult. And they refused to believe that COVID was real because Donald Trump told them COVID wasn't real. They refused to. The irony is, even though the vaccine was created under Trump, it's the only good thing he did. His people refused to take it because he had created so much skepticism about COVID that nobody believed it. Sasha, dog wants water. One moment. So when we go late, I give the dog water. 1 second, you. I'm in the middle of a show here, you. All right. Here you go. Opa. We will do your teeth in a bit. There we go. The dog also wants me to do the teeth, but we're not going to do the teeth for a while. But yeah, so I mean, who knows? Is it possible in some parts of the country that, well, certainly, look, we know more Republicans died than Democrats. That we know. We know more Republicans got sick. Thank you for the gift there. Thank you, love. But was it enough to change the vote? Who knows? It doesn't help. I mean, again, elections can be, we saw Florida with Bush v. Gore. Wasn't the vote difference in Florida like 573 or something like that? Was the vote difference? What was it exactly? Anybody want to check? I doubt Alexa can get this one right. Alexa, what was the vote difference in Florida in Bush v. Gore?
Sorry, I don't know that.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. Yeah. Somebody can Google it very easily. 540? Was it, Diana? Is that right? I remember it was 500 and something. Yeah. So, in a place like Florida, do you think Ron DeSantis killed 540 Floridians? Of course he did. With his COVID denial. Of course he did. Easily. Especially Florida, where it's a lot of seniors. Of course he did. So, an election that close, it could have. But I think some people tried to do the math and nobody was able to come up with a compelling argument to say that it made a difference. But again, if in an election you're worried about every vote, then you don't try to kill your voters. Thank you, Mark, for the confetti on TikTok. It's just a general rule. Never try to kill your own voters. Right? Never try to kill your own voters. Very bad move there. Very bad move. Thank you, Joe, for the lights. Anyway, what else we got, guys? We'll hang a little bit longer here. Trump would never be able to get a security clearance. Not just his debt. Donald Trump would never be able to get a security clearance. No. All the creepy Russia ties, his debt is a problem. There's no way. Jared Kushner wouldn't. His son-in-law, who worked for him for a while, absolutely wouldn't. There's no way Donald Trump would get a security clearance. And I mean, all the Russia stuff. Also now, the never-ending Russia stuff. No. I mean, I had a top secret SCI security clearance. which, I mean, it's the top clearance you can get, but not really, because there's lots of levels of it once you get that high. So, I mean, it's super high, but there's, security clearances are super complicated. And there's no way I would be able to get a clearance if I did the stuff Donald Trump did. Oh, forget it. They would have taken my clearance away. Absolutely. Obama could easily get a clearance. Yeah. Because Obama didn't do anything other than Obama, unless you think black people don't deserve security clearances. And if you're a Trump supporter, maybe you do. But other than being black, Obama didn't do anything that would negate getting a security clearance. You've got to actually be, anti-American, in favor of our enemies, having secret meetings with our enemies where you come out and attack the intelligence community, keeping classified information in your house and refusing to return it to the government when demanded, and then giving the classified information to the Russians illegally, giving the classified information to an Australian guy because you were bragging and you gave him highly classified nuclear secrets. That, for example, would be the kind of stuff where you wouldn't be able to keep a security clearance. And fortunately, Barack Obama never did that, and Joe Biden never did that. But you know who did that? Yeah, I know. Your buddy did that. Yep, being a traitor is a no-no. I know. We need to kind of keep saying that more and more, because I think there's a certain segment of Americans who don't understand traitor bad, freedom good. Thank you, Botas. Appreciate that for the hat. Project 2025, incredibly dangerous. Thank you, Tired Guy. Very complicated thing, but basically Trump, you should Google this actually, because it's a big story. It's called Project 2025, so the year 2025. And basically, Trump and his supporters, and I mean his scary supporters like Stephen Miller, the top people, came to the conclusion that Trump wasn't nearly as successful in his presidency because the deep state conspiracy stopped him, and that there were too many members of the deep state. The deep state are, probably Jews, because, typically every conspiracy like this is really based on Jews. But nonetheless, the deep state is this Washington conspiracy in Washington of all of the somebody, I don't know who wouldn't let Trump do his job. And of course, this includes Trump's chief of staff, actually his multiple chiefs of staff who opposed him, his defense secretaries who opposed him, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the military who opposed him, his Department of Justice head, his FBI head, literally everybody who said, no, Donald, we're not going to let you have a coup d'etat or use the military to literally clamp down on domestic dissent, which is also illegal in America and dictatorial. Trump claimed that they were part of a conspiracy. Project 2025 is to guarantee that at the most senior level of every government agency, a nutjob, crackpot, Trump-supporting fascist takes charge, so that when Trump wants to use the military to kill protesters, that the top guy in the military will say, yes, sir. Because last time he wanted to use them to attack protesters, and the military guy said, no, we're not going to do it. This time he'd be able to. That's what Project 2025 is. The second thing Project 2025 is, they want to fire the federal workforce. In our workforce, I know because Europeans were telling me a little bit different. In ours, you've got a very large, thank you, Frankie, for the gift. You've got a very large segment of the workforce that are civil servants. They're functionaries. They work. They're not partisan. They're not Democrats. They're not Republicans. They just work, right? You've also got the top level, several thousand who are political appointees. I was watching the Danish show Borgen. That's very good. Excellent show, by the way. It might be Netflix, I don't know, but if you find it, check it out. Borgen, B-O-R-G-E-N. Excellent political show. And I was surprised in watching it that the way the State Department, the Foreign Ministry, for example, works in Denmark is like everybody working there except almost everybody working there except the head, the foreign minister, are civil servants. Like everybody, all the top people are people that are part of the government apparatus. In America, the top people, the functionaries, are political appointees. They're appointed by Trump. So what Trump wants to do is not just get rid of those top people, which he'd have the right to do. He wants to go to the civil service and fire most of the civil service. So basically, he takes hundreds of thousands of jobs, of government jobs, fires, maybe even a million, fire all the regular people and give them to his own crazy people. So he's using them, and again, this is corruption as well. He's using them to give money to his friends, and he's ensuring that only crazy people will be at every level of government, basically people who are fascists. That people who are fascists will be occupying every level of government in America, down to the lowest people working in the federal government. That is incredibly scary. But as I said, it starts at the top because Trump was upset that his chief of staff at the White House wasn't a fascist, who just criticized Trump the other day for praising the H-man, the guy who was the bad guy in Nazi Germany. We try not to say his name because of, I don't know how TikTok will respond. Trump used to praise him, and Trump's chief of staff said that was crazy. Even Bill Barr, who was Trump's head at the Department of Justice, who we can't stand. I mean, absolutely can't stand. Even he stood up to Trump too much, even though he never stood up to Trump. Trump felt he stood up to Trump. So they're going to put actual fascists in charge of every government agency and at every level. Where to get this information is quite easy because it's called Project 2025. Google it. There are a ton of news stories. Don't go to the crazy people. Read the credible news sites. There are a never-ending series of news stories about this. It's called Project 2025, 2025. And you'll read about it because Stephen Miller, who's a complete fascist, is in charge of the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, just Google. I say Google it because it's a huge story. And it's been written about a lot. I mean, I'll even pull it up as we're talking to you guys here just to show you. I mean, it's a huge story. And very scary because people, I mean, the press is talking about it, but people are not talking about it. Yeah, I mean, you know, New York Times, Axios, Guardian. I mean, you can also find a bunch of liberal publications, which I'd say ignore them. You know, Semaphore, Politico. Oh yeah, this was a good one from last week. This was about Project 2020. This story came out. This was actually 2 weeks ago, February 20th. This one came out. This is part of the project. Trump allies prepare to infuse Christian nationalism in second administration. Oh, you guys may not be able to see because it's always a little. There we go. It's always a little dark for you guys, or a little too bright. Spearheading the effort is Russell Vogt, president of the Center for Renewing America, part of a conservative consortium preparing for Trump's return to power. Yeah. Christian nationalism. Christian nationalists in America believe that the country was founded as a Christian nation and that Christian values should be prioritized throughout government and public life. As the country has become less religious and more diverse, Vout has embraced the idea that Christians are under assault and has spoken of policies he might pursue in response. First of all, it's illegal for us to be a Christian nation in government because we are a multi-theistic nation. You are under the Constitution. It's okay if you're a Jew. It's okay if you're a Muslim. It's okay if you're Hindu, right? It's okay if you're Christian, and it's okay if you're none of them. You're allowed to be not religious at all. Not for these guys. Oh God. The documents obtained by Politico do not outline specific Christian nationalist policies, but Vout has promoted a restrictionist immigration agenda, saying a person's background doesn't define who can enter the U.S., but rather citing biblical teachings, whether that person accepted Israel's God, laws, and understanding of history. They're going to determine immigration policy based on whether you accept Israel's God, laws, and understanding of history. A biblical understanding of history, or you're not allowed into the U.S. That is a small taste of Project 2025. Although that's actually an offshoot of Project 2025, because Project 2025 is to actually have fascists running everything so that Donald Trump, because they felt that Trump all the grab for power Trump did, he wasn't able to do everything he wanted to, like stealing the election. His own people stopped Trump from stealing the election. He was going to replace the top levels of the Justice Department, and his other top employees, like CIA, everybody else, told him no, but he was going to. And his top officials said, no, we're going to resign. He wants people who are so fascist to be at the top levels of government that when he tries to do something crazy next time, like steal the election, his senior people will not just support him, but like openly support him. Because last time, in the end, Mike Pence was a good example. Mike Pence vacillated, our vice president, but in the end, he did not side with Donald Trump's effort to overthrow the election. Trump is going to make sure he picks a vice president this time who's a fascist, who doesn't believe in democracy and who believes in political violence, who's basically a domestic terrorist. And that's what he's going to do. And I will tell you, I laugh about this because, Hope is saying, no, you're wrong. Hope, I got news for you. The BBC told me I was wrong back in 2017 as well, or 2016. We had election night, November 2016. BBC Radio, I think it was, wanted to talk to me. They called me like an hour and a half late, which was incredibly rude of them. They didn't tell me they were calling late. And it was me and some American professor on the show. And they wanted my take on the election that Donald Trump had just won. And I told them it was going to be far worse than anybody imagined. The other professor laughed at me and said, oh, our system of government, we have lots of checks and balances. And I think people are a little hysterical about just how bad they think Donald Trump's going to be. The BBC host, I remember kind of chuckling at me as well. And I kid you not, after making me wait like for an hour for the damn interview, at 1:30 in the morning, the fucking BBC, I swear, Mom hates it when I swear, but the freaking BBC made me, at like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, I did this freaking interview for them. They kicked me off after like 5 minutes because I was saying that this is going to be a disaster and he's going to be a much scarier and stricter than anything you people can imagine. And the BBC host thought that was funny and ridiculous and basically kicked me off the show after 5 minutes. So whoever the hell that was, BBC, congratulations. But I was right. Yeah. Pissed me off, though. And literally kept me waiting all that time. Thank you, Incredibly Tired. But, so yeah. Literally, maybe 8 years ago, you got to play the Trump won't be that bad, that's ridiculous game. We all literally lived through 4 years. Well, we actually didn't all live through 4 years of his presidency. A couple million of us died during his presidency because he ignored COVID. But other than that, the rest of us lived through his presidency. Thank you, Simon. So it's pretty, including trying to violently overthrow the government. It was a radio interview, so I don't know where it is. It was a radio interview with the BBC. Like I said, election night, maybe between 1 and 2 a.m. New York City time. I couldn't tell you where it is. They've got a recording somewhere. Couldn't tell you where it is. It'd be pretty funny, but pissed me off. The other American was such a twit. Literally like, ha, ha, ha. He was the professor. Things aren't going to be that bad. And the host was the same way. And literally, I didn't fit their mantra. So the host got rid of me after I remember after 5 minutes, I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I didn't sell it to them, but you people, and they came to me like an hour or more late. I stayed up till 1:32 in the morning for them on that horrible election night. Unbelievable. Anyway, I was right, of course, but what do you do? So, no, I like the BBC. As an American, we do like the BBC. Thank you, Grammy, for the paper crane. We do like the BBC, but it was incredibly snobby. It reminds me actually when I was a freelancer for The Economist back around 1999, 2000, and I wrote several articles for them about the internet and politics and culture. The internet and political culture in America. It was fun. Obviously very fun to write for The Economist. Thank you, Deep Press. But I remember at the time, I said, you don't have anybody already writing for you about the internet as the internet? And she said, well, we do, we have people covering Silicon Valley and stuff, but we don't have anybody whose job it is to cover the internet. And I was like, it's 1999. How do you not? And she said, well, I have to tell you, we Brits are a little more reserved than you Americans about this whole internet thing. And basically she said, like, you Americans kind of have it in your head that this internet thing is going to be a big deal. We Brits are a little more reserved about that. And I remember her saying that to me because it's been 25 years now. It was just the funniest damn thing. Like, I love that. I just freaking love that, The problem is, Mr. Manjo, is by saying I'm biased, don't tell, okay, whoever took him off, bring him back. That was not, Poppy, that was not mute. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but that was not mutable. He just disagreed. That guy would be the epitome of somebody who is just simply disagreeing and is being okay. So please bring him back. That is not the kind of person I want muted. He would have to say a lot worse than that for that guy to be muted. But the Yep. All right. Let's see. Sorry, someone says breaking news on Biden. Let's see.
Suddenly, it seems to be kumbaya.
I'm gonna guess it's not though. Oh, this isn't breaking news. I mean, no offense, but Biden clinches the Democratic nomination. I mean, I'm with you, but it's not really breaking news. You know what I mean? Like, it's not really breaking news. But anyway, yeah, like I said, make sure we bring that guy back, Poppy, and whoever else is modding. I don't want that guy, Mr. Manjo, gone. I don't think I can bring him back. I don't know how you guys sort of take people out and bring them back, but if you can, thank you, Depress. Because the point is that, and I think I understand where sort of people come from with this sort of notion of bias. The problem is you can't just let Donald Trump do what he's doing anymore. After January 6th, especially, I mean before, but after January 6th especially, no, I'm a good American. I'm a patriot. I believe in defending our country. I believe in defending democracy here and abroad. I'm not going to let Donald Trump and I'm not going to let him basically sell our country to the Russians and not stand up and say something about it, because that's how bad things happen around the world. That's how, I'm not going to name it, but you know what I mean. Fascism happens because good people sit back and say, well, maybe it's bad, but maybe it won't be as bad, So no, there is no, and it's not biased, but there is no way. I mean, honestly, we are setting ourselves up for an incredibly dangerous situation. Thank you, Poppy. We're setting ourselves up for an incredibly dangerous situation if we simply say, yeah, Trump is bad, but it would be biased and bad for us to actually criticize him. Let's just let the voters decide whether we end democracy. Let's let the voters decide whether we're going to have more political violence. No, that's not the way it works. The voters are deciding, by the way. They're the ones who are going to vote. But we don't just have the right, we have the duty to speak out against this guy because he's dangerous as hell. He's un-American as hell. And yeah, it's not biased. Again, is it biased? Now, I will say this, because as a lawyer, we like to take the extreme examples. Is it biased to look back at history and say Adolf Hitler was a bad man? Right? Is that biased? No. Trump isn't Hitler, correct. He's not the H-man, but supposedly it's biased to call out people who are bad. Okay, let's not take him. Let's take Mussolini. Is it biased to say Mussolini was a bad man? How about Richard Nixon? Is it biased to say Richard Nixon was bad for bugging, by eavesdropping on the Democratic Party headquarters? That was bad. And he should have lost his job for that. Is that biased? I mean, at what point, right, do we Orban in Hungary, Putin in Russia, Putin kills his political opponents. Is it biased of me to say that's bad, killing your political opponents? That's bad that Putin doesn't have free elections. Is that biased? Thank you, Kronos. I think, unfortunately, and this especially happens among Trump supporters, and I'm sorry, but it does, that you guys get uncomfortable that people call out Donald Trump for his crimes and his sins. And you feel like people are biased because they're calling out Trump. Maybe we're just Americans. I mean, some people are doing it because they're Democrats. I'm not doing it because I'm a Democrat. I'm doing it because the man scares the hell out of me. Because I think we're going to have massive political violence in this country because of Donald Trump. I do. And if I don't speak out, I'm complicit in that violence because we are going to have violence. He is going to convince, maybe not you, Joe, but he's going to convince your friends to turn violent when he loses the election. And we are lucky they didn't kill anybody this time in the Capitol because that mob could have easily killed, my God, had they gotten their hands on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they would have killed her. Nancy Pelosi, they would have killed her, right? Mitch McConnell, Mike Pence, at the very least, they would have hurt them, right? People in their 80s, they would have injured them. They would have taken them hostage. I mean, I just, no. I'm just not going to sit back and accept this stuff anymore. I'm just not going to accept that anymore. And I mean, I'm sorry. Actually, you don't remember. Sorry, I saw a troll. Somebody just said, I don't remember any wars we were in when Trump was president. Really? Have you heard of Iraq and Afghanistan? Because Donald Trump was the one that negotiated the deal with the Taliban that got us to pull out of Afghanistan that was such a disaster. The reason we pulled out was because of Donald Trump. He was going to have a ceremony with the State Department with the Taliban leaders. So, really? You're not familiar with any wars? Donald Trump was in 2 wars. Yeah. Second of all, so you're saying presidents are bad if war happens on their watch. So Winston Churchill was a bad leader because war happened when he was leader? Franklin Roosevelt was a bad leader because a war happened while he was president? Is that really the case? George Washington, I guess, was a really bad leader too. I understand. Did you know that a war broke out when George Washington was president? Yeah. I guess that must mean he's a very bad man. No, Hokie. Unfortunately, I'm just proving you wrong. And unfortunately, people who are biased and of lesser intellect as well like to sort of attack people when they're proven wrong because they can't defend themselves. Lincoln, thank you, Lynn. Good point. Did you know war broke out when Abraham Lincoln was president? He must have been a bad president. Maybe sometimes bad things simply happen when you're president and, you got to do the right. Now, I will say this. There's a famous expression. Thank you. Who was that with the join my team? Thank you, Al Stryker. There's a famous expression, you don't buy the cow when you get the milk for free, that applies to Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And the basic idea is it can be applied to your girlfriend and getting married and the fun you have together. That some people use it for that. Thank you, Chabi. Thank you, Flower Lady. Other people apply it like I would to Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin didn't need to invade Ukraine while Trump was president because he had Trump. He had the president of the United States working for him. He had the president of the United States who was corrupted or bribed and worked for Vladimir Putin while Putin was president of Russia and Trump was president of the United States. So at that point, he didn't need to invade Ukraine and do what he wanted to do because actually it made more sense for Putin not to invade Ukraine because by invading Ukraine, he risked exactly what happened, uniting NATO and frankly forcing Trump to possibly even speak out against him. It was much better for Putin to have the sitting president of the United States secretly or not so secretly working for Putin than to create a rift by invading Ukraine. As for Hamas, I don't know, maybe you think Trump voters have got input with Hamas. Democrats don't have a lot of input with Hamas. So I'm not really convinced that Joe Biden somehow convinced Palestinian terrorists to invade Israel on October 7th and murder a bunch of Israeli babies and foreigners. I'm just not convinced that was Joe Biden's doing, but call me crazy. Thank you, Dora. But I think the point is that Trump voters, and you notice how he tried to change the topic. We're literally talking about Trump trying to violently overthrow our government, and they're talking about, well, on his watch, Gaza didn't happen. On his watch, Ukraine didn't happen. Your guy literally tried to violently overthrow the government, okay? There is nothing you can say about Joe Biden that will be as bad as Donald Trump trying to violently overthrow the government. Period. It doesn't work. And Hokie, I'm sorry, but you're a troll. You're a troll. Violently, I've got the videos on my phone. I just pulled the videos up on my phone, by the way, today. You know what? Don't throw Hokie. Oh, don't throw Hokie off yet. I want Hokie to see this. Oh, he's muted though. Muted is okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't violent. Hokie says it wasn't violent. Here we go, guys. Here's the not violent Trump supporters. Actually, I'm going to show TikTok because for you guys, it's never close enough. Hold on, actually, I need to put the light up a little bit. There we go. This is them trying to break into the Capitol building and attacking the police. This is what the guy just said wasn't violent, okay? This is them using an American flagpole to try to break down the doors of the Capitol building. This is them beating the police again from a police camera. You're then going to see them using flags to actually beat the police who are on the ground. Here we go. See, look at the guy using flags and sticks to beat the police. They're all beating the police that are lying on the ground now. These are Trump supporters outside the White House. You're cherry picking?
The crowd was unbelievable, and I mentioned the word love, the love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, the love in the air. I love the cherry picking. Cherry picking. We're literally showing your people, your voters, your people who Trump sent to the Capitol beating police, hundreds of them beating police with sticks. And I love the trope. Seriously, you're cherry picking, guys. You're a member of a freaking cult. You're a member of a cult. Yeah, Rob, I bet those are plants. Well, if they're plants, Bob, then why is it that Donald Trump said he's going to pardon them today? Donald Trump today called them hostages and said he was going to pardon them. Why would he pardon them if they're plants? Oh, unless you're wrong, of course, and trying to make up excuses for terrorism. Thank you, Felicia. But this is the thing. These guys are traitors. They're terrorists. They got what's coming to them. Only one of them did, and more of them should have, frankly. They should have treated them the way they would have anybody else trying to violently overthrow our government. These people got off lucky. And for Republicans to call them terrorists or to call them hostages is unbelievable. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Zeev. Thank you, Dee. But this is what Trump supporters do. They're un-American. They don't believe in our democracy. They believe in violence, which is why they would look at that and say, that's okay. You're cherry picking. So again, the fact that some Trump supporters didn't join in a mob of several hundred people and try to kill the police means the insurrection was okay because some of them weren't violent. Okay, some of them weren't violent. They still broke into the Capitol with the intent of stopping the American election from being counted, which is a felony, because you wanted your guy to be installed as president instead of the guy who was elected, which is a coup d'etat. Okay, sure. No, it's absolutely disgusting. But again, these people, guys, this is why we talk about this, and we need to keep talking about it because these people are dangerous. And we've got to stand up to them. They want you, whether you're Democrat, Republican, or in the middle, they want you to be afraid to tell the truth. They want you to be afraid that you're being biased if you tell the truth about Trump and the violence that these people perpetrated. That you're being biased because they know that good people worry about being biased. It's a really brilliant psychological strategy because a good person, they go, I'm being biased. Okay, well, I'll try not to be biased. I'll try not to be as critical of Trump. Really? Try not to be as critical of the guy trying to violently overthrow the government. The guy just this weekend, he claimed again he won the election. Thank you, Lance. No, be critical. Defend democracy. Be critical of Viktor Orban. Be critical of Vladimir Putin. Be critical of Donald Trump. Be critical of Marine Le Pen. Be critical of fascists. Yeah. People who embrace political violence. People who, in Putin's case, kill their political opponents. People like Trump who probably would love to, but can't get away with it yet. Absolutely. Are you kidding? I'm always critical of Biden, Ken. I'm critical of Biden all the time. You should hear me talk about Biden and Ukraine. Absolutely. But we are talking about an existential threat to the country. We're not talking about, Biden, I think, disaster on the border. I would agree. I think Biden has let the border get out of control because too many Democrats on the far left don't want the border shut at all. They want to let everybody in, and I think they're wrong. But he's not trying to overthrow the country, But I agree with you. But I would agree, though. I'm not happy about that. Anyway, all right, guys, I'm going to get going. Thank you, Felicia. We've been doing this an hour and 45. Well, you know who I think the best candidate is at this point. I mean, Nikki Haley would have been fine as a Republican. She's way to the right of me, but she wouldn't have tried to overthrow America's democracy. Thank you, Deep Press. But guess what? Republicans didn't want her. They wanted the crazy guy. They wanted the criminal who's been indicted 4 times and facing 91 criminal charges. Thank you, Love My. So, what do you do? All right, guys. Well, honestly, if Biden is, once again, is Biden having dementia or is Biden a criminal mastermind? I never quite know with you guys. Either Biden orchestrated a whole money deal with China and Ukraine, and it's very complicated and takes hours to explain, or he has dementia and doesn't know what's going on. So which one is it? I never quite know, right? Yeah, they love both. They love both. All right, guys, it's an hour and 45 in here. Trump, final point. Can Trump pardon himself? Yes, but it's never been done before, so we don't know if it would hold up in court. Thank you, Black Opal. Thank you, Deep Press. We don't know if the courts would uphold it because it's never been, because no president had the balls to pardon himself. Donald Trump would. Donald Trump also would call off all the investigations of himself, which would be an incredible move that only, again, Richard Nixon did and lost the and had to literally resign as a result. Donald Trump, he'll just call off all the investigations. So, yeah, it's very scary. It's very scary. All right, let's go, guys. We'll talk about the crazy man another day. It is an hour and 45 into this. I am John Aravosis. Thank you for joining us. We got a little off topic, but it's an election year. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump again because it's an election year. We don't have a choice. You know, our democracy matters, and I'm not going to be on my deathbed and say, well, I didn't talk enough about Trump because it would have been biased. Well, too bad. Thank you, Irene. All right, guys, so you have a good night. I will see you all tomorrow, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S. Remember that America, the time changed last weekend. So it's now an hour earlier, depending where you live. Well, it's not really early. It's still 6 o'clock Washington, D.C. time. So if you're a little confused, Google and see what time it is in Washington, D.C. And my show starts at 6 o'clock Washington, D.C. time, 6 p.m., 6 in the evening. All right? Thank you, guys. Have a good night, and I will see you all tomorrow. All right? Okay, and then now I'm going to go brush my dog's teeth. Hello, Sil. Hello.